In the last lesson, we looked at how to prompt AI to get good scripts. But in this one, we're going to go a step further because getting the script is really only half the battle. You also need to be able to read it, understand it, and know what it's actually doing before you run it anywhere. And here's the thing, this lesson isn't just about safety, it's also about learning and education. Because if you use AI the right way, every script it gives you is a free lesson. You're not just automating tasks, you're actually picking up new skills along the way without even realizing it. So let's get into it. This time I'm going to be using Copilot, alright, and we're going to start off with a pretty simple request. We're going to ask Copilot to write a PowerShell script that checks all local user accounts on Windows Server, identifies any accounts that have been logged into for more than 90 days, and outputs a list of those accounts, including the username and last logon date. So we're going to go ahead and hit enter here. It's going to make sure that I'm not a robot and that I am in fact human, which thankfully I am, so I can tick that box, and we're going to let it run. And you can see almost immediately it's spitting out clear PowerShell code for us to use. So we've got a decent script back, and the temptation might be just to copy it and paste it straight into PowerShell and run it. And honestly, a lot of people do that and it makes me a little bit nervous. We're definitely not going to do that because we're good sysadmins. First, we're going to pull it apart and actually understand what we're looking at. So the first thing really that you should get used to doing with any script is asking for it to explain it, not just the code, but the logic behind it. So you could type a prompt like this. Before I run this, can you explain what this script does in plain English, section by section? Assume I'm not a developer, I just want to understand the logic. And by prompting the AI with further text, we're now getting this back. And look what it gives us. It's walking us through every single block, what it's doing, why, and in what order. So it's a really good idea to do this with every script, especially while you're maybe still in that beginner to intermediate phase of scripting and you're not yet got an advanced knowledge that you can just look at something like this and immediately understand, what this if statement's doing or what these variables are. If you're still a little bit unsure, well, then you can just ask AI to break it down, and look at that. Each section is broken down. It's giving us a detailed information. So if you've got this on your computer at home, and you've got it loaded up in your browser, definitely give it a try. Ask it to write a script. It can be any script. It can be just what I asked it before. And then ask it to break it down. So read through this before you ever look at the code itself, get the logic idea in your head, and once you understand what the script is supposed to do, the code really starts to make a lot more sense. It's something I really do encourage my students to do every single time you're writing scripting, especially when you're starting out. It might take you an additional 2 to 5 minutes, but it means that you're never running something blind and you may learn something out of it too. So let's go a little bit deeper, alright? Once you've got the overview, let's say there's a piece of code that's really still not sticking to you, alright? Let's say this bit right here, the check each account's last logon date. You're really struggling to understand what the script is doing here and the logic. Well, we can copy and paste that in, and we can say something like, in that script, can you explain what this does in more detail, alright? So we can say, go and prompt it something like that. And now it's getting even more specific, alright? I'm not asking it to explain the whole thing again. I'm asking about one specific line that I really want to understand properly. And it tells us exactly what's happening here. So it's giving us details of what line means, simply explained bit by bit. Alright, and again, if you're still stuck on a little bit, it's just as simple as asking the AI more questions so that until you fully understand it. Alright? So this is really, really, really awesome. Here's a technique as well that I really like. You can ask AI to add comments directly into the code. So it actually can turn the script itself into a learning document. So we can say something like, can you rewrite that script with a comment above every line or block explaining exactly what it does? This isn't just good for you, this is good for your team. If you're writing code and you're putting descriptions above each line, when they come to look at your code, maybe you've gone off on holiday, maybe you've retired because you've become so successful, you've got all the money in the bank and you no longer need to work anymore, you are still helping your team out in the future. Someone can come look at this script and get an idea with what each line does and what the logic is behind that. Every line now has a comment above it. You can save this version, come back to it, and it still makes sense. It's a really great habit to get into. Always keep an annotated version of any script you plan to use again. All right, so now I want you to go out and test yourself, right? I want you to go and load up Claude, load up Copilot, load up ChatGPT, and build a script of your own. But then, using the tools and techniques that I've given you, build upon that. Ask it questions, ask it to annotate each line. If there's a bit you're unsure about, dive deeper into it. It's really, really cool. All right. And further to that, you could even do something like asking you to quiz you on the code, right? Here's another way to test yourself that I do really like. We could say something like, based on that PowerShell script, ask me 5 questions to test whether I understand what it does and how it works. Ask them one at a time and wait for my answer before moving on. And now you've just built yourself like a proper interactive quiz. It's going to ask you a question. You answer, it tells you if you're right and explains why. And this is one of the genuinely best ways to learn scripting, because the questions are tied directly to the code that you're working with, not just some generic textbook example. So try this on a script that you're using, and you could say something like, if you want to start building error handling in, you could even say something like, what could go wrong with this script in a real environment? What edge cases might cause it to fail or produce incorrect results? This is something most people don't think to ask, but it is incredibly valuable. It's going to tell you the weak spots. Maybe it falls over if a user account has no logon date recorded. Maybe it needs admin rights. Maybe it behaves differently on certain versions of different Windows Server. Knowing this before you run it means that you can either add extra error handling to the script or at least know what to watch out for when you test it. So it makes you much more confident and a much more careful operator. So when we pull that together, every time the AI gives you a script, don't just run it. Ask it to explain it. Ask about any lines or commands that you don't understand or you don't recognize. Get it to annotate the code with comments and test yourself by getting it to quiz you. If you do that consistently across this course, by the end, you're not just going to have a collection of useful scripts, you'll actually understand how they work. And that is what turns you from someone who uses AI into someone who genuinely knows what they're doing. I want to thank you very much for sticking with me throughout this lesson. I sure hope you learned something. I'll see you in the next one.